So, hello and welcome everyone. As you can see, it is a little bit of a double act today. It's myself here, Louise Reeve, and local writer Finn Cato. We are doing this today. I will be slightly half off to the side because the camera has got its limitations for those of you online. On the other hand, you all know what I look like, so so let's start, as we always do, by lighting our chalice. So we light our chalice today with these words. Here in this place, now at this time, feel the space that lies within and between us. Shall we sow there a seed, a kind word or deed? Let us pause for a while and sense the presence here of no thing. A space full of hope, a space for what could be. We create this time, we create this space, so let us cherish it now and fill it mindfully. Here we connect, having time to reflect. We can use this space to really make a difference. Space to fill with love, a space to learn and grow. Nurturing life, giving purpose and meaning. A pebble in the pool sends ripples out to sea. So let us make this a space filled with peace and with beauty. May it be so. Amen. So, today's service was actually inspired by an article in the Unitarian magazine, The Inquirer, titled The Existential Type, and it was that led me to invite Finn over to speak to us today about the ideas in it. So, one thing I guess we didn't quite go through is which of us is going to read out different bits. We can alternate if you like. But firstly, do you want to say a bit about yourself, Finn?
Of course, yeah, definitely. So I'm Finn Cato, although that's a bit of a lie. Finn Cato is my pen name. My real name's Benedict Hawkin, and I do my music under the name Benedict Hawkin. So I'm in here today in both capacities because I'll be playing a few songs for you. So I'm Hawkin Cato, like under the banner of the brand Hawkin Cato. I come here as both today. So personally speaking, on a spiritual level, I'm not religious, but I'm heavily influenced by the tradition I was brought up in, which is Catholicism. I think that we're brought up in a tradition. It informs your worldview subconsciously or consciously. You can't really escape it. But later in life, I've been strongly influenced by Taoism, which is, for those who don't know, a philosophical tradition from the Far East, or formerly known as Taoism. So that's, informed by the writing of Lao Tzu and Zhangzi, which are two kind of Chinese writers from, thousands of years ago. And it informs much of my work and my life. I wouldn't say it's a religion. It's more of a philosophy to me because it doesn't I'm not influenced. It doesn't influence my beliefs in terms of spirituality or the afterlife, but at its core, it's very much a kind of practice and how to live your life. Influences me a great deal. I don't know if that will do for a summary.
It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, cheers.
So you had your article, The Existential Type, and I was thinking it might be good if we read out a bit of the article.
Yeah, that's.
Would you like me to go, or would you like to do it since it's your words?
I'll tell you. I'll do it. Yeah,
Okay.
if that's all right. Yeah. So shall I from the top?
Well, do you want to read out the first bit of it?
This is the bleak part, but it gets happier as the service goes on, basically. I'll warn you ahead of time. So this is an article I wrote for the Inquirer, the Existential Type. Two things happened after I turned 25. I had an existential crisis. I started to write. I blame my prefrontal cortex for the timing. Neuroscience points to this section of the brain as being responsible for planning, reasoning, and organizing language. It's also supposed to finish developing around your mid-20s. This process is supposed to be a gradual one that happens throughout your youth, but I can't help think I was a late bloomer who had a last-minute prefrontal growth spurt. I say this because around that time, I had a dramatic cognitive shift. I became more decisive. I used to be something of a fantasist, but now I could separate good ideas from pointless delusions. I became more resistant to distractions. My focus narrowed. I'd always been creative and had designs on being a writer, but now I became able to reason ideas to their natural endpoint, gaining the ability to navigate the shoals of writer's block and occasionally finish stories. Newly minted, with upgraded problem-solving powers, my brain turned to the oldest and most prescient problem. Short-sighted and overly confident, it expected an easy victory, soon realised it started a fight it couldn't finish or turn away from. Problem's name was death. This was how the existential crisis began. In a sense, it's never really gone away, it's just existed in a more benign form most of the time. And now I'm in my 30s, and I think I've got this for life. Its worst periods happen every couple of years and last for a few months. They start with the feeling of having a thought you can't unthink. Simple thought, you will die. My mind always recognizes this thought as a problem that can be solved and goes into overdrive to find a solution. It can be compared to a dark flow state. I'll have 100 epiphanies about the nature of the universe, only to discard them as soon as I realize they won't make the thought go away. I'll run through all possible outcomes of life and death, heaven, oblivion, reincarnation, nirvana, immortality, and nothing will do. Permanence and impermanence seem equally intolerable. My scope of time and sense of time widens. Everywhere I see my own death. So that's the first part of the article, as I said. It gets happier, that's the bleak bit. So
yeah, so it sounds like part of what we want to do is to have people ask questions if you've got questions for Finn. I suppose what I was wondering is, I mean, I actually wrote down here, I know you didn't want to call this service existentialism because, as you said, that's quite a big topic, and it's a very philosophical topic. But do we want to talk a little bit about what existentialism is, or what it feels like? When we say existential, are we talking about everything you experience, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose I'm going to narrowly define it in its traditional way it would be defined, and then I'll define it as my personal, maybe, interpretation of it. So narrowly, it's a philosophical movement that extended from the late 19th century till now, and it deals with the kind of the mysterious parts of existence, and the kind of parts that seem maybe incomprehensible to us in our lives. So I would expand this to say it's a being's attempt to understand our place in the infinite, or the finite as well. It can concern death, obviously, as pointed out in the article, but it's not entirely death focused, because it also concerns life, but it concerns life in relation to our place in the universe, in terms of our place in time, the before our lives and the after, that core of stillness, that before, the great before, that it concerns that too, I think. So I don't know if that's too wide a definition, because that would make everybody an existentialist, but I think actually that's true. And certainly I think everybody in this room is probably an existentialist to some way, because everybody who chooses religion, or chooses consciously to reject religion or spirituality, or that embraces or rejects it doesn't matter. Anybody who has had serious thoughts about this, I think, is what I would call an existentialist. It concerns existence, and so today I'm not here to convert you all to existentialism, because you all are existentialists, and it doesn't really fully concern existentialism as a philosophy, because I'm not an existential philosopher, and I'm here today really just to talk about it in relation to art, which I think they have a really strong connection, existential feelings and art, and particularly my own experience with having existential thoughts that err on being debilitating when they get too much. And that can be the case for some people, I think, is these existential thoughts can become too much, a bit like an illness. They call it medically an existential crisis, is what they call it, and it can happen to everybody, basically. It might happen to all of you or none of you, I don't know, but it is something that's quite common. So yeah, that's it as kind of what I'm here to talk about today. Does that answer the question?
That's it. I'd say does anyone else have any thoughts on that? It's a big one, isn't it?
It is. I must take it in.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like something I think many of us face, particularly those of us who take an interest in the religious life. Because I think it does deal with the biggest questions, which religion and spirituality tend to try and answer. What are we here for? What gives meaning to my life?
Yeah, I think every people who are religious and even deeply religious and would kind of identify themselves as fairly traditionally religious can have existential feelings, and all I think religion concerns existentialism. In my view, I talked briefly in the article about kind of like magical thinking or fantastical thinking, and that's something you abandon fantastical thinking around the time that you're in your 30s. But I don't think that I don't define religion as fantastical thinking, because I think that people who arrive at religious beliefs conscientiously don't do that in a fantastical way. I think it's a process, and the conscientious Christian doesn't go, "Well, Jesus died for our sins, so I can go to heaven. It's all sorted now." They don't do that. They go, "Jesus died for our sins." Well, that's incredible, but what does that mean for me? And equally, the Buddhist knows knows the unknowability of that gravity of the choice between samsara and nirvana. It's not an easy thing. Well, I've just got to escape the wheel of existence, and then it's all good. It's much more deep than that.
Quite nuanced, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think so.
I was actually thinking of that famous Patti Smith lyric there. Jesus died for someone's sins, but not mine. I think most of us go through that. This is what everyone says, but at the same time, what does it mean for me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you mentioned at one point you realised you felt like you started a fight you couldn't win.
Yeah.
Was there anything that, if this isn't too personal, was there anything that really precipitated that?
Not. I mean, I can't remember specifically what started. I think it can. I talk a little bit later about the. Oh yeah.
Can I just borrow the copy of the article?
Oh, of course, yeah, you can. Where is it?
Oh, you were saying.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly how it started, but a kind of memorable first episode was kind of coming to an epiphany one night, something vague, that maybe love is the real meaning of life, and then just not feeling any better the next day. And kind of, I go into detail about the symptoms of existential angst in the article, and we might cover it and we might not, but I think that it's more of an everything reminds you of death kind of when you go in the deepest doldrums of it. And as I say, I don't think they're entirely negative at all, but at first they can seem that way. I think it's because the mind is trying to treat death and existence as a problem to be solved when it's it's something the mind does. It's a very human thing. It instinctively does this. It assigns it a kind of moral binary, basically, and says this is a problem and it needs to go away. But we don't need to rail and resist against death any more than we need to accept it either. We don't have to do either, and in my stronger, more lucid moments, maybe now is probably one of these, you don't see it as a problem, or whether it can be kind of solved. It's there, but the mind does it. It's like that kind of, I put on here my notes, like a kind of stray sock you've lazily left on the bedroom floor, and you might gleefully ignore it and exist alongside it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then suddenly you wake up and you're offended by the very idea of the sock on the floor. That needs to go in the washing basket. Of course, you can't solve the problem of existence as easily as putting it in the washing basket. It's something we have to live alongside, but we can do that. We have permission to do it, but certainly the mind doesn't always think that way, and that's basically what happens when I think an existential crisis comes along, or at least I theorise that.
So how does writing help you?
I if that's all right, I might answer that question later on, because I think some of the later in the service goes into quite some detail about that.
Right.
But it's a very personal thing, but it relates to the creativity in general, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps at this moment it might be good, unless anyone's got any other questions, if we paused and maybe had some music, if you wouldn't mind performing.
Yeah, of course I can. So I've brought my guitar here today. This is a song I wrote called Sad Tune, and I wrote it very specifically about the kind of feelings I was having in the midst of one of these crises. And so this is, again, it's kind of the nadir, if you like. I don't think existential crises are necessarily all bad at all, and but there certainly feels like there's a low point when you're having them sometimes. I think that can be the case, and it's just the reality of it. And so yeah, and my music can be a little bit Marmite to some people, but that's fine. If you want a copy of the lyrics or anything like that, or want to see some of my other lyrics, some of them are on my website, which is hawkingcato.com, or I can send you, if you reach out to me, I can send you a copy. If you thought, oh, there's brilliant lyrics, but why do you have to keep singing through it? Yeah, I can work that out. You came round for a place to stay, right on time for the shortest day. Every road out of town was shut off. No, I wasn't cut off. I would go anyway. Storm clouds roll through Northampton, every terrace and island in the wide ocean. Children played out but got cold quickly. Graduates by the pharmacy, and it wasn't done. And the river freezes and the Titan crawls, and the moon leans in its long night fall, like my oldest friend. Make me believe it won't ever end. Glacier moves like the Holy Ghost, through where the streets are empty and the bars are all closed. Cover me till I'm set like concrete. Never leave this bedsheet while you're holding me close. Cause I've barely moved since the day you flew in. Channel hopping, but I don't tune in. Cause if I thought I deserved unwasted time, I'd leave, but I don't. That's why I let you in. That's why I let you in. And the moon curtains for the deepest black, and I look at you like there's no looking back, like the burning bridge. I can't recall the world from where I walked in. And the moon leans in as the long night falls, whispering of the all and end all. There's a bird in spring, and though I can't see it, I can hear it call, 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 I can hear it call. Thank you very much.
So I think now, given that Spin's doing a lot of talking today, it might be good to hear, give your voice a little bit of a rest. So why don't I read out the next part of the existential type. So what you wrote was, my mind always recognises this thought, you will die, as a problem to be solved and goes into overdrive to find a solution. This can be compared to a dark flow state. And I think, I'm familiar with the term flow state, but I think it's fair to say that's a situation where someone feels as though ideas are flowing through them, their mind is fascinated by something and they're completely caught up in the moment.
Yes.
Which is usually quite a good thing, but it can also be quite bad if your mind is fixated by something quite dark.
Yes.
Yeah. So you write, I'll have 100 epiphanies about the nature of the universe, only to discard them as soon as I realise they won't make the thought go away. I will run through all possible outcomes of life and death, heaven, oblivion, reincarnation, nirvana, immortality, and nothing will do. Permanence and impermanence seem equally intolerable. My scope and sense of time widens everywhere I see my own death. It's not completely egotistical. I see everyone else's death too. The way this feeling follows and envelops could be compared to the infamous black dog of depression. Existential angst is not always described as depression, but functionally it becomes very similar. An exhausting, nauseating, paralysing state, one which you might take 45 minutes to wash a single dish, which your partner will probably inspect and furtively return to the dirty pile. I always believe this is a state that will last forever, but this is once again the product of an overconfident brain. It will not. I write this now in a period of lucidity and relative happiness, and I haven't had an episode like this in nearly a year. So it sounds like you're experiencing some quite dark times there. Is there anything you wanted to comment on for that?
Yeah, so trying to think, it's funny, it wasn't painful to dredge it up, but it did, even just thinking about this a lot for this article can put you in a flow state, and flow states are brilliant, especially for if you have a creative hobby like writing or music, but they can be really, really tiring. It's physically exhausting for the brain. It's very hard, and that's why. And you're kind of walking around in this zombie-like state, and it can be really difficult. One thing I would say, I think that precipitated this, and this can, trigger existential crises, is periods of transition. And I've had 3 episodes of this, and 2 of them came before periods of transition. And this might be it, because it's the end of a chapter, so we contemplate what it means for things to end. And I don't mean end as in full stop. I don't just mean that end as a change, because life is and what death is too. But also like normal bad things, I think, can trigger these thoughts, and I think it will be very unique to everybody, because I know that everybody probably has them in some form. So I think I'm lucky in that I haven't been touched by lots and lots of painful events in my life, and some people have, and that again, I don't want to patronise them and tell them what an existential crisis looks like when it will be uniquely different for everybody. The things like grief and illness, but also boredom as well. Seeing lots of death in the news cycle, because one of my existential crises came shortly after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Now, I'll be personally honest, I have no great love for the monarchy, but it brought up a lot seeing somebody that's this permanent institution come to an end. It's a period of change, and it's a period of transition. And it happens to all of us, and increasingly with age as well, that you're exposed to painful things, and change in your life. And some people have experienced death directly a lot, and it doesn't bother them. And some people haven't been exposed to it a lot at all, like myself, but it bothers them immensely. And I think it can really change from person to person. There's not a direct correlation with it. But coming out of it, the feeling of it getting better as well, that I touch on in the end of that passage, is quite important, because it doesn't last forever, because we're alive and life happens around us. And personally speaking, if I've had one of these debilitating states for a while, say a few months, which can feel like an age when you're in the midst of one of these things, you start getting distracted and wanting to engage with things again. And it's almost like, you'll see a new film advertisement on the side of a bus or whatever, and you think, I really want to see that, and then you think, quick, you better not tell your brain that you wanted to do something other than think about death. Keep it quiet. But you start to feel the draw, just as you felt the draw initially to start thinking about it a lot. You start to feel the draw to stop thinking about it and think about other things. So that's a great sign that maybe your brain's done with trying to, just getting bored with running up against a wall again and again. And so I would say, if anybody having one of these crises, if you feel like you want to, get out of it, and you feel that drift away from it, embrace it, you know. Yeah, I might have got ahead of myself there, and
No, I think that was pretty good.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask or talk about?
But possibly about this, it's digressing a bit back. Was there a moment when you realised you had started a fight you couldn't easily win?
Well, that's really a question more from us to Finn, because I think he was mentioning in his writing that it felt like you were in a bit of a fight with the meaning.
Yeah, it can be like a fight with your own mind. Oh no, it's interesting because I think you should say that, because I don't think having these feelings should feel like a fight necessarily, but it can feel like that, I think, to somebody who is trying to see it as a problem to be solved and running against the wall and trying to figure everything out. I think there's a little bit of an element of you have to let the mystery be a little bit. With whatever spiritual path you choose, you can't know all the answers because we're but humans at the end of the day. And you know, ultimately, it's like you're right. It shouldn't be a fight. You know, we're not, but it is. It can feel like that. I think a fight with your own brain and with fight between your brain and all these existential problems and things like that. Yeah, that.
Yes, yeah, that's great. Do you want to?
I think about this business of death. There's a few times in the last few years when I've been quite ill, and I think about death. Don't particularly worry about it, but there's two aspects. I look at my books, for example. I've got lots of books. I say, oh, I have to get rid of these. And so I've got rid of books. And now I regret that, and I wish I'd kept them. Because actually now I'm probably fitter than I've been for years.
Yeah.
The other aspect is I think things I've got that are of significance to the family that should be kept. I've been giving them to my daughter. She's the only member of the family who's interested in this side of things. But recently there was something that I felt I wanted. I mean, the things I'd given to her, I didn't think I would have any further use for them. And now there's something I wanted, and she cannot find it. She knows she's got it somewhere, but
probably somewhere.
So the word that comes to my mind in all this is frustration.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that kind of speaks volumes about that. Like, you're having these thoughts of finality if you have something that brings up thoughts of death, like an illness, for example, and you think, oh, I better get rid of all the stuff. But actually, no, you're alive now. You want to use the stuff, like, you know, and that's, I think, coming out of the existential crisis feels like that. You think, actually, I'm surrounded by all this life and things like that. I want to make the most of it, you know, or it's calling me to make the most of it. So I don't think it can, you know, and that's something that I didn't consciously do whenever I had any of these existential episodes. You know, yeah.
Well, perhaps now might be a good time to have some more music if you'd like to share that with us.
Brilliant.
I think one of your tunes you wanted to play for us was Running Out of Ways, am I right?
Yes, that is. So I will say, so this is kind of prefiguring the second part of a lot of what we're going to talk about, which is that relationship to creativity and what is creativity? How does it spring about? Where do you get ideas? So this will relate to some of the questions later on in the. Yeah, this is about that where does creativity come from, which is, in my view, just as mysterious at times as the big existential questions and things like that. And I think that's maybe why I do think they're very related for me, creativity and these existential feelings. They are, you know, inextricably linked. And one final thing I wanted to say about existentialism, actually, and these feelings I've had, I didn't actually mention but was in my notes, is that I think that they relate to change and that they change you when you have them, and actually they can enact real positive changes in your perspective and your creativity and your spirituality. While I wouldn't will anybody to have an existential crisis to make a change like that to their perspective, they can be really useful. I think they're just part of life, and we could kind of embrace that. Anyway, this is all about creativity and how mysterious that can be. It's called Running Out of Ways.
Running out of ways to say I love you. Running out of ways to feel hurt. I'm worried that your name might lose its power. I'm worried that your name's only a word. I'm afraid that you won't circle round to meet me. I'm afraid you won't blow my way again. The way you used to catch me in the open. The way you used to tear me limb from limb. So close your eyes, whisper I love you, like it's the first time it's been said today. I love you, I'll breathe, gonna shake the leaves. After all, I may believe that there are endless ways. Told you once that I should never test you, but I'm incapable of letting mysteries be. The impulse to take everything to pieces, till I'm wondering if it had ever been. They told me time and time and time and time again not to consume too much of a good thing. You vanished when I tried to comprehend you, making something from nothing. So don't ask a desperate man if he loves you. He's always going to reply I do. I cringe 'cause I've seen it. Hell baby, I've been it. But he doesn't need to mean it to make it true. Just open wide and shout, I love you. Let your voice be the hurricane to blow away the crowd. You'll uproot the trees that once obediently kneel, till we're the last ones in the field. Till we're the last ones in the field. Just throwing ideas around.
And as we move through your writing in the existential type, you're saying, having been to those quite dark places, on the other end of the spectrum is the feeling that comes from writing. For me, it's one of the most exhilarating and life-affirming feelings going. Yet writing begins just the same as an existential spell, with an idea I can't get out of my head. The idea will be for a story, a shape, but it wasn't always like this. Before I was 25, I usually tried to start my stories the wrong way, with the answer an imposition of my worldview. I really like art that tries to give us answers, but when it works, it does so because of, and not in spite of, a brilliant story. The realization that the story trumps the statement is part of what turned me into a writer. This doesn't mean that I think stories are unimportant or unserious. A finished story will almost always reveal what really matters to you in a deep and uncompromising way. I'm always surprised that with each finished story, the same questions that I am hung up on stare back at me. For me, these questions always relate to purpose, meaning, and death in a universe that appears strictly materialistic. It's the old ghost existentialism back to haunt me. Only this time, having been transformed by the creative process, it no longer feels so scary. In fact, it feels vital. So I was especially interested with this because I write a bit myself. I've never had anything published. I just write for fun. Some people might have seen a few of my writings on the Unitarians blog. I also write fiction, which I mostly don't share with Unitarianism because it's terrible. But I did think it was interesting. You'd almost written this article a little bit in the way of a story, in the sense you've got your protagonist yourself. Your protagonist exists, faces a challenge. The challenge seems overwhelming, and then you start to find your own way through it and to face the challenge and to move through it. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting way of writing the article.
I honestly hadn't noticed that at all as well. So that's so interesting that you should point that out.
So, I mean, question I had, and again, this is me being a bit of a writer. Do you feel that you shape the story, or are you its conduit? Because there's times when I've been writing, I feel like I'm sitting there and the idea is flowing through me and onto the page. But whilst there's me in there, it's almost as though it's coming through me, not necessarily. A lot of times you sit there just dragging all of the words out. Yeah. But sometimes it feels like it's just coming.
It's a really good question, and short answer is I don't know actually. But in that song, that I displayed, Running Out of Ways, I kind of liken creativity, and I know it was a bit buried, but likening creativity to this wind, this mysterious wind that comes and blows you and catches you when you're standing in a field. I think I read that somewhere, that somebody related creativity to that image, and it resonated with me, which is why in that song, creativity is this mysterious wind that blows, and you have to be there waiting for it, so that when it blows at you, you're there ready for it to catch these ideas it's blowing at you. And so there's two parts to, I think, creativity and writing, and both of them are quite well. One of them is the mysterious element, the part that is you can't pin down, and that's quite bewitching and it's quite soothing to me, to be honest, for a mind that is constantly trying to reason with everything all the time. To have a part of creativity that's a daily part of my life, I don't know how it works, is really an excellent thought for me. It brings me a lot of kind of comfort. Exactly. I just, but it is soothing, especially if, you tend to overthink. It's something you can't outthink. Creativity will always be mysterious. But I think there is a practical part of it, as with anything as well. And you can, I have daily practices for opening myself up to creativity. And I think these can be useful for anybody. And it's useful because there's work to be done in the mind and on the page. And this is stuff that comes with making a creative project come to life, so that people can read it, like you could read that article. And that's not necessarily creative or mysterious, it's just work. So typing words on a blank page, making sure that you actually have the time to do that, otherwise it'll stay in your head. I'm kind of stating the obvious here, or practicing the right guitar riff so you play it right. These aren't creative, but they are linked to the creative process intrinsically. So I kind of split the two types of thinking you have to do when you be creative. There's the spontaneous thinking, which you can't control. That's that mysterious creative wind that sweeps you up and gives you ideas and makes you want to write them down. And that process of flowing through, I think that's a great image, because that's how it does feel. Flow. It comes again, that flow state. And there's the necessary thinking. There's the thinking that, I need to sit down and work this idea out for a while so it makes sense. Could I word it this way? No. And that can feel like work. That's not, I don't think, that creative. It's just something you've got to do. It's that reasoning part of the brain that, you need both to make the idea come to life. But I do think one thing I did want to say as well, the hard work of creativity is difficult when you're going through an existential episode. So I don't worry about this at the time, I think it's okay to not be creative and not feel the creative wind if you're focused on something else. I think that's part of life. You know, you're not always going to feel creative all the time. Few things. So perfectionist, I can relate to. That is a big hint. That's the big hindrance always. Like, you know, it's a real and becoming less perfectionist has made me like a much more putting myself out there kind of things. Because those songs I played, they weren't perfect. Made tons of mistakes in them, but it was good to bring them out. I'm glad I could share them with you today. You know, it's a really, for me, it's a good thing. You're probably like, well, I don't think that's a good thing. No, it's nice for me to be able to share them. You know, that's important. And I think everybody who has creative ideas should feel the will to share them with other people. It's important. And you might get criticism, and that's okay as well. You can listen to the criticism, and it can be right. It can be right sometimes, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean the creative feeling was any less valid, I think. And that's just how I maybe think of it. What was the second point? Sorry, because I thought I was really good. Oh, it's paying attention. Was creatively paying attention?
Well,
I don't know.
there was a songwriter that said that to me, because I can't write songs safe life, and he said, well, you know, you just got to pay attention to what's going on around you, you know.
Yeah,
that's fine if you're a songwriter.
I think everybody does that though to a certain extent. It's the creative stuff is paying attention, but it's having your own ideas as well about the things you're paying attention to, and everybody does that all the time. You know, you all have your own ideas, you know, and they'll be different to mine, and they'll be different to each other's. That's part of it. And I think that I do reject the idea that songwriters and artists are inherently more aware than other people, or even inherently more creative. It's just we all have our own roots to creative expression, I think.
I'm curious to know your influences on guitar work, because there's a lot of unusual stuff.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, I could talk your ear off about that. So I'll talk to you at the end about that. Yeah. That would be too much of a digression.
Perhaps that's one for afterwards with some coffee and a biscuit.
Yeah, that's it. Do we have an extra 2 hours that we can fit in?
Well, we've got them in for a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of stuff myself, some of which has actually got published.
Oh, fantastic.
But it's been, in my case, always the idea or inspiration comes first, and then you've got to shape it yourself.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's how it is for me. Yeah.
The action being some things which have already there, like translating one song from a different language into English, like Gaelic mostly in my case. But
do you still find that can still be quite helpful for creative process? It's a bit when you do that translation, because it's maybe giving you new insight into something.
The trouble with translation is that it's almost impossible to do an exact translation. You have to do a version capturing the sense or meaning of the original. But if you do literally word for word, it doesn't rhyme and it doesn't scan for a song.
So you have to put your own imprint on it a little bit to make it a proper song. Yeah.
Well, looking at the time, may I suggest, if you're happy for me to keep reading, shall I read out the final part of the article and we'll leave that? Then perhaps we might finish with our hymn, and then maybe you wouldn't mind playing your final song at the end.
Of course, yeah, that sounds great, yeah. I'll be quick on the last bit.
No, it's fine. It's great that we're getting to have such a discussion. But I'm also mindful that you should never keep people from their coffee and biscuits. Well, as much as anything, we're a community, I hope. And if we don't get together over refreshments, we lose that. So it's that's what I tell myself when I put the kettle on. So you've written, writing is healing is the kind of magical thinking I've tended to reject post being 25 years old. And to be honest, sometimes it doesn't feel like healing, but like I've just drunk 5 cups of coffee, which surely isn't that healthy. But I've noticed that every time I come out of the throes of the existential doldrums, I end up having an idea for a story. Magic or not, existential thoughts that once might paralyse me can be grappled when filtered by the slow process of writing, much like the mountains slowly cleaning the water of impurities. I believe the reason for this lies in writing's nature. When it comes to expressing our thoughts in an order we want and at a pace that we want, the written word remains the most ruthlessly simple way to do this. This simplicity enables an infinite potential for expression, a potential which obliterates preconceptions. The written word can express any feeling, ask any question. That is an important word, question. Writing is at its most powerful when it leaves us with questions, and I often think of writing as an alchemical process that converts certainties to questions. For the existentially inclined, this is a blessing. Our darkest and most upsetting conclusions are reframed as lines of inquiry. Questions are the only way we can reckon with our existential position. The arts, including writing, are our tools for making them. It's all we can do to ask. And you write, I don't think I'll ever get an answer. Perhaps I don't want one, but I will keep asking. So, I suppose it's an interesting one, isn't it? About having to learn to live with uncertainty. As in a sense, that seems almost the conclusion that part of this is about learning to live with uncertainty and exist alongside it, rather than trying to fight it and push it away.
Yeah, definitely. And I think spirituality and religion, and especially in your own way, as you do in the nonconformist tradition, is a way of learning to live alongside it. It's asking questions and doing so with an open mind, and I think that's really important. I will say, and also I think kind of the questions: how do we live with uncertainty? You don't need to do anything, because you don't need to reckon with that uncertainty at every moment. To reckon with death and existence isn't an intrinsically bad or good thing, I don't think. It's just something you can do. But your brain's not your boss, so you don't have to meet a quota of daily dread thoughts when you're having an existential crisis. If I was going to give some practical tips, this is for myself, and to you as well. But if you have your own ideas, that's fine. But for myself, I always think, here's what you need to do if you have an existential crisis. So, give yourself permission to be distracted if you do get distracted. And that might end up being a little bit of willing yourself to be distracted, keep doing the things you enjoy doing. And that's because they're quite escapism. You can have too much of it, but it's quite an important tool for helping us just get on with the day, and kind of exposing us to all life has to offer, because that's important for helping us find, to keep asking these questions. So you're not doing anything wrong by thinking about existential questions, but you're not doing anything right either. So give yourself permission to be distracted. And as with everything, talking helps. So say uncertainty is allowed, or what's upsetting you aloud. Thinking about death is upsetting me. That's a good thing to say, I think, when you're having an existential crisis, and that's absolutely fine, because that is a real thing. If it's upsetting you, then that's your truth. Say it. And say things that give you pleasure too, because that, again, it's exposing yourself to everything life has to offer. My fiance said, in a moment of deep unhappiness a long time ago, she said that a thought that had brought her peace was, I am thankful for a boiled egg. And that thought really resonated with me. I'm allergic to eggs, but I thought the fact that the simple thing, that I'm thankful for a boiled egg. But, in a more general sense, how do we live with uncertainty is the central question of existentialism. I don't have an answer, but live with is the thing. You're living alongside it. You don't have to do anything. You just live with it. I'm not going to say anything more about that. I think you had some questions about the creative process.
Well, I was just thinking, if someone did want to try writing as a way of trying to address this existential angst, just thinking about where they would start. David mentioned paying attention, so I wonder if that's part of it.
Yeah, and it's very personal to each individual, I think, because I do sincerely believe everybody is creative in their own way, and how you particularly do it is quite, important to you. And also, I would say don't force it, because if you're having an existential episode or really kind of deep, heavy feelings, that can leave you feeling completely spent. So it's okay not to have feelings. It's okay, not to have the juices flowing. That's absolutely all right. I can't speak for poetry or visual arts when I speak about creativity. So I'm a songwriter and I'm a fiction and non-fiction writer. I personally, if I was feeling a lot of existential feelings as well, I probably find songwriting and non-fiction a bit too blunt an instrument. By that mean is non-fiction is very direct and songwriting is very condensed. It's a lot of feelings in one short space, and those feelings are amplified by the sound and the interplay with the music. So I kind of maybe would urge myself, but urge others as well to consider fiction as a means, because character is an important maybe way of realizing some of these feelings. You're doing it indirectly through somebody else, through a story, and that's actually really helped me. I think I started writing. I was a songwriter for ages. I've been a songwriter since I was 10 years old. I only started writing fiction when I was 25, and that was really important, to use this kind of abstract, indirect way to reckon with these feelings. You're experiencing things vicariously through the lens of your characters, so the risk and the threat isn't there, and you've got your character doing everything, and your characters interacting with each other, and it allows the subconscious to kind of bubble up, within the story. I wrote a big long novel, 600 pages. Halfway through, I was like, "Oh right, main character's having an existential crisis. I didn't realize that, but he is actually just like me." That I've got 300 pages in. I've just realized I've been using this now to reckon with these feelings, and I think that's I think that's an interesting way of doing it. And in terms of like, where would you start? Just start. Just do it. Find your own way and figure it out. And your way is the best way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I will close out by putting out our Chalice candle, reading some words, and then if you'd like to perform the song for us, that would be lovely. So, we come towards the end of our time together this Sunday. And I'd like to close with these words: Spirit of Quiet Strength, by the Reverend Daniel Costley. Spirit of quiet strength. We give thanks for this time, for open minds, honest words, and care that passes between us. In a world often rushed and unsure, may our work be a steady act of hope. Let us carry forward that which we've begun through the long time ahead, with courage, clarity, and kindness. May our efforts ripple outwards, small, imperfect, but meaningful. Bless each voice, each heart, and the common threads that hold us together in our mutual purpose. We leave this place in gratitude and in the quiet trust that this matters. May it be so. Amen. And perhaps you'd like to play us out.
Thank you. I'll play one more song. And, if anybody needs to go off and get a biscuit or tea, desperately as well, I certainly won't hold it against you.
I might put the kettle on.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me just turn the camera around so that we can all see you.
So this song is called "Tell Me What You Need," and it's really a song about trying to search for purpose in your life and how that can be a struggle with your life. And having been raised in the Catholic tradition, this is a bit of a dialogue with God, and it's, I would say, a deeply Catholic thing to, even when you're lapsed, or you're not thinking, you're still in constant dialogue with God, and He's talking through you through a headset and watching you with a camera, informing every decision. So yeah, tell me what you need. This is called.
Let my love go like a leaf when the winds are blowing. I don't know where it came from or where it's really going. Dances like a turkey beneath that open sky, and yours is unconditional, but you won't tell me why. You underestimate me, yet you know me to my bones, from head to toe, to my marrow, like the river knows the stone. Won't you tell me what you need? So tell me what you need. You've got my body and soul. Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. Give me somewhere to go. 'Cause on your behalf somebody made a promise. You would be there whenever I call. after Jesus called you in the garden, all of your gardens were walled. Let my love go like a leaf when the winds are blowing. Don't know where it came from or where it's really going. It only took one mistake to make true all my fears. The same mistake made over and over for years and years and years. You underestimate me, yet you know me. Turn my bones from head to toe, to my marrow like the river of stone. Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. You got my body and soul. Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. Give me somewhere to go. You wouldn't know it from the way I talked about you. You could have me if you really tried. I still wear the flower of your silence. If that's not enough of a sign, that's not enough of a sign. Won't you tell me what you need? Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. You got my body and soul. Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. Give me somewhere to go. What you need? Tell me what you need. You got my body and soul. Won't you tell me what you need? Tell me what you need. Give me somewhere to go.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks for having me.